So, today let's talk about a bike that has been creating a little buzz here and there, the Morbidelli T250X. Now, at first glance, it looks like the kind of motorcycle that could take you everywhere, through city traffic, across country roads, maybe even a little bit of adventure off the beaten path. It carries that rugged trail look, those upside-down forks in the front, the high ground clearance, the dual-purpose tires. It screams adventure. And honestly, when you first see it, you might just think, wow, this could be my dream 250 trail bike. But let's not get carried away too fast, because once you spend some time with the T250X, the story starts to change. And trust me, you'll want to hear both sides of this before you decide whether this bike deserves a place in your garage. Let's start with the positives, because yes, this bike does have a few. First, the design. The T250X actually looks the part. It has that tall stance, the trail bike presence, and for someone who wants to make a statement on the road, it does deliver visually. The inverted telescopic forks in the front, the rear mono shock, and those knobby tires at least give you the confidence that this machine is built to handle more than just smooth city asphalt. And in fairness, when you're riding on moderate dirt tracks or gravel, the suspension does absorb small bumps decently. The seat height of 820 mm also gives you that commanding view of the road ahead, which many riders absolutely love. Another positive, fuel efficiency isn't terrible for a 250cc engine. If you ride sensibly, you'll get mileage that doesn't completely burn your pocket. And for young riders who want a bike that looks adventurous without draining the wallet every week, that's a decent plus. The torque figure, around 22 Nm, also sounds okay for city rides and small highway runs. So yes, on the surface, the T250X has its strengths. But here's where the cracks begin to show, and once you notice them, it becomes really hard to unsee. The biggest problem with the Morbidelli T250X is that it overpromises and underdelivers. It wants you to believe it's an adventure machine, but when you actually ride it on challenging terrain, it quickly reminds you of its limitations. Let's talk about the engine. On paper, it's a 249cc single-cylinder, 4-stroke motor. You'd expect that to feel peppy, right? Wrong. The actual riding experience feels underwhelming. You don't get that punch you'd want for climbing steep hills or tackling off-road trails. Instead, you're forced to keep the revs high just to keep moving with confidence, and when you do that, the vibrations start creeping in. The bike gets noisy, it feels strained, and instead of enjoying the ride, you're left wondering why the power delivery feels so restricted. Many riders even describe it as blocked, like the bike is holding back instead of opening up. And if you've ever ridden a truly responsive 250, you'll notice this instantly. Cooling is another headache. While competitors are offering liquid-cooled systems, the T250X still relies heavily on air cooling in its basic version. On hot summer days or during long stop-and-go traffic, this bike heats up faster than you'd like. That means a loss of performance, and sometimes even discomfort for the rider. Imagine planning a long trail ride only to cut it short because the bike feels like it's cooking under you. Not exactly adventure-ready, is it? Now, let's talk about weight. At about 154 kilograms curb weight, this machine is no lightweight. Sure, it's not a monster, but for a trail bike in this category, that extra weight becomes a burden. Off-road, you'll feel it when you try to maneuver through sand, mud, or rocky paths. Instead of confidence, the bike starts giving you doubt, like, can I really push this through here? And if you're a shorter rider, the tall seat height combined with that weight makes it a struggle to control in tricky situations. The suspension, while looking impressive on paper, doesn't quite match the expectations. The rear mono shock can feel harsh over rough patches, and if you load the bike with luggage, it sags in a way that doesn't inspire confidence. The front forks dive under heavy braking, which again takes away from the stability you'd expect on trails. And speaking of braking, no ABS in the base version. That's right, in 2025, a trail bike without standard ABS feels outdated and risky. On loose gravel or wet roads, this is a serious downside. Then there's the matter of practicality. The fuel tank holds about 11.7 liters. For a commuter, that's okay. But for a so-called adventure or trail bike, that's small. You'll be stopping for fuel more often than you'd like, especially if you take it out into areas where petrol pumps are scarce. Ground clearance of 220 mm sounds good, but the underbelly protection is minimal. A stray rock or a hidden bump could cause serious damage to the engine case. If you're buying this as a rough and tough machine, this weakness is hard to ignore. Another outdated choice: carburetor. While most modern bikes in this class have switched to electronic fuel injection for smoother performance and easier cold starts, the T250X is still living in the past with a carburetor in its basic version. That means more maintenance, harder cold starts, and less precise fuel efficiency. Why should a new bike in 2025 still be stuck with technology from yesterday? And here comes the deal breaker: value for money. The base version cuts corners with cooling, ABS, and fuel system. But if you want those features, you'll have to upgrade to the Pro version, which costs significantly more. At that point, the bike enters the same price bracket as competitors who already offer more refined, more reliable, and more powerful packages. Why pay extra just to make this bike average, when other brands are giving you the full package right out of the box? So, in the end, what do we really have here? The Morbidelli T250X is like a student who dresses up for the exam, looks confident walking into the room, but when the question paper arrives, can't actually answer half of it. It looks like a trail bike, it talks like a trail bike, but when it's time to perform, it struggles. Yes, it has a few positives: the design, the stance, the decent fuel economy, but the flaws are simply too many. Underpowered engine, poor cooling, heavy weight, no ABS in the base model, small fuel tank, outdated carburetor. And when you compare it to rivals in the same class, the T250X just doesn't hold its ground. So here's my verdict. The Morbidelli T250X is a bike that had potential, but ended up being more of a flop than a success. It's the kind of motorcycle that will attract you at first sight, maybe even impress you on a short test ride, but live with it for a while, push it a little, and you'll see why it fails to meet expectations. But hey, that's just my take. Now it's your turn. Do you think the Morbidelli T250X deserves a chance, or is it just another overhyped machine that looks better in pictures than on the road? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's see how many of you think this bike is worth riding and how many of you agree that it's simply a flop.